Hello, hello, and welcome to the show because you are now tuned into a brand spanking new Monday Night Live. That's right, aka the Hangout stream, aka the Chill stream, baby. All fired up and having some fun for November 7th, 2022, and brought to you by yours truly, the man, broadcasting from behind the curtain. You know who I am. Because if you don't know by now, you can visit the World Wide Web at livefreeliverich.com or simply Google this name and you can find out. How you folks doing tonight? Did you have a good week? You've been staying away from all that rage bait. It's been circulating around the internets, the interwebs, about the event that shall not be named that's taking place tomorrow. I don't know. I don't get into all that nonsense. But here's what I do get into: some books. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and slide right inside my first segment of the night, where I like to shine a spotlight on some books that are currently available or coming soon to an online store near you. Yes, it's true. And this first one comes from Twitter, from Cadence Larissa. Beresford. She says, mermaids, sirens, ghosts, zombies, and much, much more. Mostly, but not only, horror poetry. And it's available in paperback and ebook on Amazon. And this is FASCINATE, Twisted Poems for the Depraved by Simon Warwick Beresford. Apparently a pseudonym. Let's check it out. Okay, this is FASCINATE. Let's read the blurb here. A compilation of poems that I wrote between the ages of 17 and 37. It's quite a spread. Includes themes of erotic horror, regular horror, sci-fi, paganism, humor, and general insanity. Poems about fairies, goddesses, ghosts, nefarious plants, mermaids, pirates, aliens, naughty nuns, tentacle monsters, a dragon, and more. 86 pages of poetry. It's been a minute since I featured some poetry on the live stream. And just a reminder, all these books are suggested. All these titles that you see here in this first segment are books that are suggested to me directly by the publishers, whether it's a self-published author, a publishing, or from a publishing label, or a small press company. All right. Next one from Jonathan Taylor. my literary debut, Heir to the Empire, The Next Generation, a story of young immigrants finding their way in turbulent times. It's available now. This is Heir to the Empire, The Next Generation by Jonathan Taylor. If you'd like to have, if you have a book coming out soon on the market and you'd like to have it mentioned during a future broadcast, you can just go ahead and share a link with me on my social media. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, or you can just go ahead and join the Discord. Link is in the description down below, and there are plenty of channels for you to share various things that I could mention during the live stream. So many different ways to be featured during a show. Okay. There's the cover, and here is the blurb. Martha always admired her veteran father and sought to emulate his example. Her wish was granted when she, along with her proteges and reclusive best friend Elizabeth, was accepted in the premier military academy in the world. Once there, the two are assigned in a unit with Juliana, a free-spirited and passionate fellow cadet, as well as Victor, a young man who maintains his cool in almost all situations and is seemingly full of surprises. As the semester rolls through, they face the hardships the university pushes on them, as well as befriend some of their fellow cadets. However, a looming terrorist threat and the secrets they keep from each other threaten to tear their careers and their friendships apart. 359 pages. I see we have categories: fantasy, adventure, magical realism, also teen and young adult ebooks. That is Heir to the Empire. Hey, Rainer, you made it. Let's see who else we got here. What was that? Book number 2. Next book up. Let's see. See, this is the reason why I like doing this. Not only is it just to mention people's books that they have out on the market, but I never really quite know what I'm going to get. Just before I get into this, just a quick thing about how this works. So for one, like when I share, when I get people to share links with me, because the thing about the indie market is like, it's almost like, I feel like one thing that people, especially if you like watch like Booktube on YouTube, and there are people who like, they want to get into indie, but they don't really quite know where to start. Like they don't really know how to go about like discovering indie writers. Even though, I mean, yeah, you could say they're everywhere. Like they're everywhere, especially on like Twitter. I mean, if you go on Twitter and you start looking at hashtags like hashtag writing community or something like that, or hashtag authors of Twitter, you're bound to run into some indie authors and people like sharing their books and stuff. But not everybody has the time to like go through all of these books. So I feel like that's kind of like what I'm trying to do here with this whole like format that I have here and this with this channel is I want to kind of have like not only create an outlet for like indie authors who maybe don't have any aspirations to be putting themselves out there on social media like the way I am right now, to have a chance to be acknowledged for the work that they do, and get their, you know, maybe get their books out there to more people in that way, or get noticed, I should say. But also to like help out on the other side with readers, and then kind of like destigmatize the whole independent market thing, and kind of like make it a fun way of like discovering new books, or books that people may have otherwise never even, you know, would have never discovered otherwise if it wasn't for, you know, someone like me doing a program like this. Let's see. We have next one up. We have from Jen Elvy, says, "Hi and thank you. Here is my poetry collection," and some more poetry tonight. "Hi and thank you. Here's my poetry collection filled with magical, poetic tales of all things whimsical. Fairies, elves, goblins, dragons. You'll find them all in this enchanting collection. Available as a paperback too." All right. And this is A Fantasy Feast, a collection of fantasy poems by Jen Elvy. All right, let's check out the blurb, huh? "Welcome to a feast of fantasy poems. Forget the everyday worries and step into a world of magical mystery. This book contains poetic tales that will delight and entertain you, as well as featuring some enchanted characters and settings. 85 pages of magical poetry." That first one was like 86 pages, wasn't it? Like around the same thing. Interessante. All right, let's do one more book for tonight before we move on into other subjects here. I have quite a few things to talk about tonight. All right. From Star Carrington, just shares her book. Just shares a link to her book, Rhyming Rhapsody. More poetry, 3 poetry books tonight. Triple threat, a hat trick, if you will, of poetry. This one is Rhyming Rhapsody by Jill Criddle. Pseudonym. Another pseudonym. It's interesting that they would use pseudonyms for poetry books. Maybe because poetry is such a personal thing. I don't know. What do you think about that? I don't know what happened to... I don't know what happened to the cover, but I would say, and this one isn't on Amazon, by the way. This one's actually through Lulu.com. I don't know if you ever use that. I'm familiar with Lulu, but I've never used their services before. But I would say right now, I'd fix that book cover. I'm not a stickler about book covers. I'm the last one to judge a book by its cover. I'm the last person that'll judge a book by its cover, but I'll tell you right now that that looks sloppy. I have to say, right out the gates. I don't know if this banner is like supposed to be on there, this banner across the top, or if that's something that Lulu does. But if that's how you made the book cover, I'd fix that, or at least take out the typography from the photograph that you have on there. That ought to clean it up. But here we go. A collection of prize-winning poetry that has been published in several anthologies with lyrics from her film City of Destiny. The poems span 25 years of the author's life. Jill Criddle started to write poetry at age 10. She made homemade cards for family and friends with her poetry. She currently is screenwriting and editing. Well, that's cool. Screenwriting. That's something that I would like to learn how to do. As I've mentioned before, I would eventually like to get involved in film. But film, holy shit. I can only imagine the amount of financial investment, the amount of overhead costs with getting involved in film, even indie film. Let's move into the next segment. Oh yeah, well, before we do that, let me just say those are the books for this week. So the way that I do this, each week I feature 4 books that were suggested to me directly by the publisher themselves. And then after the program here, it's either later tonight or sometime tomorrow, I will post in my community tab, and you can vote tomorrow in the most important election of the day, which is to vote for which one out of those 4 books you thought had the most text appeal. Yes. In other words, which one out of those 4 books would you be most likely to pick up? And also, if you would like to discover more from the independent market, you can also go to my shorts tab on the channel, or check out the playlist entitled Mystery Packs. And you can open up some mystery packs. These mystery packs contain 2 things. One, a cover card, which is a cover card which basically represents an indie book that has been recognized. Well, the cover cards all represent the indie books that have been recognized so far by myself, and each pack also includes a link to an editorial written on that particular piece of work. So 2 ways. We have the books that you discover on the stream, which are suggested directly by the publishers, and then you have the mystery packs, which are indie books that have been recognized by yours truly. Moving right along. Of course, if you are catching this live, which is what I would prefer, people hop in here while I am live. You can be an active participant of the show. But if you can't, time constraints, life is busy for a lot of people. I understand. There's no problem at all. But if you're catching this on the replay, don't hesitate to leave a comment down below, because your comments matter. That's right. I do review all the comments. Well, they do pop up. In other words, I don't hold comments for review. I will say that when it comes to when it comes to receiving, if I had to choose between receiving likes or comments, it's a no-brainer. I much prefer that you make your presence known. Please let me know that there are still free thinkers in this world. Please, and share your thoughts with me. Okay, just let it be known that I'm here to connect with people, not to be idolized. Okay. In fact, I find the concept of idolizing people on the internet to be very fucking cringe, if I'm to be quite honest. But I digress. So let's check out the comments and see what we got in comments for this week. See, I come from the old school days of YouTube, where it wasn't basically trying to be Hollywood 2.0. And it was basically just recognized for what it was. And it was just people on the internet sharing their thoughts and opinions on different subject matter and topics. And people would just have back and forth conversations. And the comment section was big. Like, I remember, well, there were two things. The comment section was big. So creators would actually do like response videos to comments in their comment section, but also other content creators would do response videos back and forth with other content creators about different topics. Of course, this was before a time when we had live streams and you could have panel discussions. So before there were panel discussions, it was you would record a video about a subject, you'd upload it, and then another content creator could watch the video, and then they would record a video of their own in turn in response to your video, and then upload that and tag you in it. So you'd have like a back and forth that way. And I have some more to say about that in a little bit here. But first, I want to just address this comment that I have. One comment did get this week. So we will give it the proper time that it deserves. Okay. So this comes from Hiawatha. I've seen him around. He usually hangs out around the comic books corner of YouTube, but has kind of meandered his way over to my section of YouTube over here. And he says, you should, this was a comment left on the most recent Hot Topic upload, which was a video on art and artificial intelligence. Okay, an ongoing discussion I've hosted here on this channel. It says, Hiawatha, you should check out Smirk the Alien and Manticore. They talk about nothing but AI and robots. Bow. Not 100% sure what you mean by that word at the end there. You mean like bow and arrow? Bow, is that slang for something? Is that an abbreviation? Perhaps you let me know. So I just want to say that although I do appreciate you suggesting some other content creators to me that you think that I might be interested in, because I'm always keeping my eyes peeled for effectively new connections, people who I want to connect with more creators. I feel like if you just like sit stagnant and you become, what happens is you start to become kind of cliquey with just maybe a select few creators, and you don't really get anywhere in terms of, you know what I mean, in terms of exposure. Like if you're trying to really build, if you're trying to get exposure for your work, exposure for your brand, you have to be willing to kind of branch out and reach out and connect with different types of creators. You can't be afraid of interacting with people on the internet. And that is one thing that I've been trying to encourage a lot more, and with other creators within, with other people within the creative sphere. But I understand it's not for everyone. Not everybody feels comfortable doing that sort of stuff. So there's different ways that, you know, we can go about. But I'm just saying, like, if you are a creator, if that is a goal of yours, is to try and increase your exposure for your name, for your brand, that is something that you have to kind of get used to doing. So Hiawatha, I do appreciate the fact of you sharing some other channels that that you think that I might be interested in checking out. And just to let you know, I have checked out their channels, and those guys do seem interesting to me. However, I cannot help but say that for all intensive purposes, you were the one who showed up to the conversation. Okay, because what you're doing is you're suggesting that I go check out other channels that are talking about AI and art and that sort of stuff. And that's great. That's fine. And I will keep an eye out on those channels. However, your comment matters to me. Your opinion matters. Do you have thoughts? Do you have opinions? Because that's what I want to know. And because you were the one who showed up for the conversation, not those guys. So, you know, if you're going to leave me a comment in the future, I would say, you know, just go ahead and share what's on your mind. You know, don't worry about what the other guys are doing. I'll check them out. That's fine. But I'm just saying, like, if you're showing up to the conversation, I prefer to hear what you have to say. That's what I'm interested in, first and foremost. And then after that, you know, we'll see what's going on with other people who may not even be aware of this channel's existence. You know what I mean? I want to interact. Like basically I resurrected this channel. This channel was dead for quite a few years, and I'm doing my best to kind of like resurrect this channel to the best of my ability. So what matters to me most, first and foremost, is interacting with the people who are proactive on this channel. So if you come here and you're engaging on this channel, you have priority first and foremost. So I just want to put that out there. With all due respect to any other content creators out there, if you want to come here, you want to suggest some other channels that I check out, I'm all ears. Like I say, I'm always looking for new connections. But if you're going to come on here, you know, maybe bring something to the table, you know, share some thoughts, you know, try to spark some imagination, get some conversation going here, you know. So talking about hot topics, for those of you who don't know, hot topics for content creators. This is a staple of the Monday night live stream. Well, it's becoming a staple of the Monday night live stream, but it's also basically a segment of the show that I started where it's basically like I kind of bring back some of those old school YouTube elements where I will pitch a hot topic to you guys, various type of hot topic type issues or concepts or what have you. Try to encourage some imagination, like spark some imagination, encourage you guys to create some content or leave some comments on the subject itself. Share your thoughts and create some videos. And if you tag me in the video, then I will actually feature your video and plug your channel that way during the live stream, and do like a live react or like a video commentary to your content on whatever the subject is. So I wanted to bring this up. No pitch this week, and there's nothing more that I need to say right now about the topics, because I want to get more people involved in the conversation. There's plenty of people talking about the conversations, but not a lot of people actually like interacting with each other on the conversations. So there's people that have opinions on the conversations, but they're not really wanting to, I noticed they're not really wanting to engage in the conversations. They just want to like lay out their opinions and then just, that's it. And that's where it ends. So what I'm doing now is, instead of just uploading, because normally what I do with the hot topics, I'll clip out the hot topics from the live stream and then I'll post them as their own video, add them to the playlist. So you could always go, instead of like sifting through live streams, you can just go ahead right over to the hot topics playlist on my channel. You can look up the videos. You can see all the different topics that I've pitched so far, and then you can leave a comment directly on that video, and I can address it. And then we can continue the segment. So what I'm doing is, now I'm clipping out. At first, I was only doing the pitch videos, but now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through the live streams. I'm going to clip out all the parts, every time I feature a segment that a conversation takes place, and I will post it as its own individual video so people can follow along if they just want to follow along with the hot topics as the conversation develops. Then you can just head right over there and check out the playlist. And I'm going to say, like, so it'll be like, one topic is art and artificial intelligence. So with the art and artificial intelligence, you'll see part 1 and part 2, part 3, etc. But it's not a series of videos. That's why I want to make clear. It's not going to be considered a series of videos, which would imply that there is some sort of progression, a seamless thread of points being made throughout this ongoing conversation. Because really, it's not, the way that I see it, there really is no end in sight to the type of hot topics that I would pitch to you guys. It's an ongoing, evolving, or changing conversation. So what these videos are, I'm going to consider them not a series of videos, but more like a thread. So I post them as threads. So I'll say art and artificial intelligence, part 1, and then it'll be a different topic, part 1, and then a different topic, part 1, and so on and so forth. And then each different topic will have multiple parts. So you can follow along with that particular thread. But it's not a series like a progression. It's more of like we are embroidering a topic. So that's what I mean by a thread. So in other words, you don't have to watch the videos in order. So if you just want to watch the most recent one, whether it's like part 3 or part 15, you could just hop right in and watch it, and you could have a completely standalone type of experience with that one video alone. In other words, you don't have to be following all the way from the beginning. So that's what I mean by like we're kind of embroidering the topic, because it's all ongoing conversations, like the art and the AI, the art and artificial intelligence conversation is just, there's new developments coming in constantly about this subject matter, this topic. And also, as more people and new people enter the conversation, I may end up revisiting points that were made in prior discussions on the topic. But I may be talking about them from a new angle, because somebody new decided to join the conversation, and then they offered new information, a new perspective, so on and so forth. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm going to be doing with the hot topics, kind of keeping them hot, if you will. Which brings me, speaking of art, which brings me to this new segment that I would like to introduce to you guys. It has to do with art. Let me see here. This new segment that I want to introduce to you guys, which has to do with art and crafts. So because of this whole, I was going earlier this week, I was doing the editing for one of the hot topic videos that was on art and artificial intelligence, and that kind of like sparked this idea for this segment. I kind of touched upon it before in the past, but I haven't really fully fleshed it out. And I think I've come up with an idea that's pretty straightforward, that everyone can understand how it works and get with the program, and also make it so it's a benefit that includes more people from the creative sphere, because indie publishing is just one part, even though it's a large part, but it's just one part of the creative sphere. And a lot of these different elements of the creative sphere kind of dovetail with each other too in many different ways. So this segment, I'm just simply going to be a show and tell, aka human-made arts and crafts. So it's with a focus on arts and crafts, preferably human-made, not AI. In other words, not AI-generated crap. So, and preferably, and if it's handmade type of stuff, by human-made, I should just say handmade arts and crafts. But it could be. I'm not excluding graphic design. So graphic design is included in this, and if you do illustrations like digitally or something like that counts as well. So like last week, for those of you who are here, I had my very first special guest. Remove the banner for a minute. I had my very first special guest co-host. He actually manned the show solo while I was gone, handling some business. And that was the Disciple. He actually inspired me to do this little illustration here. So I was inspired to do a little bit of concept art, which is what sparked this whole idea for this segment. I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of like excluding illustrators and craftsmen in this show here a little bit. So I wanted to kind of include some other people here. So this is just like a piece of concept art that I created that will probably be for a project that I have in the works. It's a character that I am developing for perhaps a future project that I will reveal at a later date, or perhaps the Disciple himself will make an appearance to tell you guys about what is in the pipeline. But back to show and tell. So show and tell, basically, illustrations, just send me a pic. I'll be posting on Twitter. So if you follow me on Twitter, or if you're on the Discord, we'll talk about that in a second. But just take a pic of it, or send me a JPEG. Send me a JPEG, something like that, and I'll share it here on the live stream, and tell me something interesting about the piece. So share the piece, share a pic, and tell me something interesting. So, and also if you're into crafts, so like handmade, I'm not talking model airplanes, I'm talking handmade original crafts here. So original creations. So whether you mold clay, blow glass, or if you're a blacksmith and you design dragon blades, daggers, or even knives, I'm interested. I'd like to see them. Share them with me, and I will mention them during a stream. I think that would be fun, actually. Even if you have crocheted your own custom-made brassiere and you want to show me how it fits, please feel free. I can't share it on here, but it doesn't mean I can't appreciate well-supported pair of you know what. Know what I mean? Huh? Little wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Know what I mean? Say no more. Moving right along. So as I said before, in terms of sharing content, you can just join the Discord. If you follow me, if you don't even have a Twitter, I know a lot of people, there is a Twitter exodus going on right now. For whatever reason, people are up in arms about Twitter. People are so sucked into nonsense. It's unbelievable, people. You got to get control of yourselves. You got to be able to reel it in. Reel it in. If I can give you one piece of advice, learn how to reel it in. Okay? Get yourself under control. Think for yourself. Anyways, so the Discord, LFLR network, is on Discord. So let's talk about Discord here just for a second. So like I say, I did add some new channels to the Discord specifically for arts, like what I mean specifically by arts is like visual arts, like illustrations, paintings, what have you. But also over here, you will see there are channels for you to share your books, your blogs, videos, submission calls. If you are into Kickstarter, Indiegogo, okay, you can share your crowdfunding projects. I like talking about those. I've covered a few on the show. They're fun. Also, not just for the artists, but also perhaps like content creators. If you're on Booktube or you just run, say, like a Facebook reading group of some sort, and you have a reading event or a book club that you run on like Facebook or some other social media website, and you would like to make people aware of it, that's something that you could share with me, and I will mention it during the live stream. So all these different ways for you to get involved, people, all these different ways. Like I say, I'm here to connect with people. I'm not here to be idolized. So if you guys are in the creative sphere and you're looking to network, you're looking to gain more exposure for your name or for your brand, I'm here for you guys. That is why I resurrected this channel. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because that's what I want to do. I want to connect with other creators out there. And another way that I've made that possible is through a side project that I started earlier this year that I call the Storytellers Society. So this is a side project that I started earlier this year, near the beginning of the year. Storyteller Society is basically where I'm showcasing writers, looking for flash fiction. So looking for flash fiction between 500 to 1,500, all the way up to like 2,000 words is like where I'm cutting it off. So anywhere between 500 to 2,000 words. And it can be any genre of fiction that you like to write. And it just works with this particular project in the way that I can market it, that there's no prompts. So it's completely open. You have room for creativity, so to speak, at the Hotel del SS, which is the basically the hub or the platform in which I am using to showcase all the writers' works. And you can go there, book yourself a room, and if approved, you become a honorary member of the Storytellers Society. And I handle all the marketing after the fact. So you can, this is an opportunity if you want to share your link tree or your website or anything like that, you can include that with your submission. And this is also a non-exclusive deal, okay? So this is just basically if you have something, even if you have it published on your own blog, that's fine, so long as you retain the rights to, you own the copyright and the ability to grant me license to publish it on my website. Okay, so just to, you know, I'm open. So I share these things every stream because I want people to know that I'm serious about this networking stuff. You know, it's not one of those things where it's like I'm not one of those people that like I come onto YouTube and I'm really trying to like air out my personal life on this platform. That's not really how I see this platform. That's not really how I want to use this platform, me specifically. I am very much a professional type of person. You know, I joke around and I have fun. Like, this is just fun for me. Like, it's not, in other words, I don't consider this to be work. And trust me, if it really felt like work, then I would not be doing this. But I'd like to keep it professional in the sense of like, I'm not going to get personal with you and vice versa type of deal. It's just like, I just want to connect with my peers. I want to connect with other indie writers out there. And I think if we work together on things, like we all have our own individual shit going on. Like we all have our own individual platforms that we're building and working on. And we all have our own work to market. But I feel like if you just take a little bit, just spend like just a little bit of effort on marketing, on networking, then your marketing will become, I think that will become a little bit easier on your marketing end. Because I feel like spending money on social media marketing is a waste of money. And that's something that I refuse to do. I do not want to give my money to any of my money to technocrats if I can help it. So I'm more like, we're supposed to be creative, right? Like, this is the creative sphere. So I am trying to come up with creative solutions to this marketing issue that affects all of us as indie writers and artists. So that's kind of what I'm doing with this live stream here. So speaking of stories, let's slide into the final segment for this stream where I get into some reading time. This is where I do some live reading from some works that you guys share with me that could come from your own blog or from another third-party platform that you've posted on. So whether it be like Kindle, we've had Kindle Vella on the show before. We've had the medium.com website. We've had Ko-Fi entries. And tonight we have from on Wattpad from Lady Ali Sangui. She says, Wizard Rimdelvir creates a troop of 7 warriors capable of magic to defeat Queen, using questionable actions as the means to a good end. But each warrior is their own person, of course, and magic is outlawed, so things do not always go as he plans. And this is This is The Rotting Crown, and this is going to be the first section of The Rotting Crown, entitled The Visions of the Wizard Rimdelvir, Indigo, by Ali Lauderdale via her Wattpad. May surprise you guys to know I am on the Wattpad. I don't really do anything with it, though. To be quite honest with you, I really don't know what to do with it as of right now. I know that it's a popular place for people to post. Well, one popular thing to do on Wattpad is to post fan fiction. I'm not saying that's what this is, but I've heard that is one popular thing that is on Wattpad. Oops. Okay, we'll see how this looks. We'll go ahead. We'll start with this blurb here. And that's the cover. Cover doesn't look bad. So 10 parts. This is ongoing. Let's see. A beautiful witch queen, a cunning wizard, 6 soldiers skilled in battle magic. But the 7th soldier could hold the key to freedom. When corruption reigns, even the queen must be punished. Rimdelvir is a wizard in service of the enchanting queen. One day, he discovers he is the product of the ultimate sin of magic, essentially necromancy. He also sees that the land he loves has been corrupted by her reign. There is poverty, injustice, and cruelty inexcusable. He begins creating a troop of 7 warriors capable of magic to defeat her, justifying his own questionable actions as the means to a good end. But each warrior is their own person, of course, and magic is outlawed, so things do not always go as he plans. In the waterlogged land of Pearl, the queen will stop at nothing to maintain her centuries of power. All right, let's hop into this. Is that him? Is that Rimdelvir right there with his staff? The Visions of the Wizard Rimdelvir, Indigo. And one thing I noticed, one fun thing I noticed about Wattpad is they have these little, like, you can leave a comment. Like, if you're reading it, you can leave a little comment after each paragraph and leave some thoughts. So perhaps we'll get into that. Whenever I see someone has left a comment on one of the paragraphs, we'll check it out and see what they had to say. The warrior who cannot kill. The sea was furious, and that was wonderful. He needed the fury of the ocean to match his own. He stood atop the gray cliff, the highest he could find, and the deep turbulence of the storm assaulted his entire body. Let's see. And Kayla says, this is amazing. This is amazingly beautiful, descriptive, vivid writing. I am captivated. Anyone else would have been vomiting. This sea was so thick with salt that it permeated the air, even lacerated his uncovered flesh. Anyone else would have perished of severe hypothermia. The air was so cold, he had a layer of frost covering his entire body, including his individual hair strands. But his anger was too great. The rock face, made almost entirely of hardened salt, crumbled and broke off in some places, yet he remained steadfast. His cause was greater than his life. In a way, his cause was greater than any creature's life. He knew this, and so did the ocean. The ocean saw him beyond the physical. Kayla continues. She says, wow, just wow, beautiful. He appeared to be very pale white, but this was due only to the frost. In fact, he was deep ebony black, the colors of ashes, and accented with dark indigo stripes currently. He also had lacerations which would have bled freely. Now, even the deep red blood from the salt gashes froze on his flesh, but it was his eyes that were the most striking. They shimmered with ferocious pale circles. The shape-shifting white and pink of the opal, the poisonous silver of Mercury, and finally the innermost circle, the intriguing and secretively gray of the mysterious hematite. They were large eyes, turned up a little at the outer corners. Some people saw them as malicious due to the fact that they projected intelligence of an almost immortal kind. All in all, he was a beauty to behold, lithe, inhumanely tall and slender, his muscles those of the natural kind, deer-like and enabling the veins to be easily viewed if he had been pale. Is this a little bit of the female gaze there, Allie? Just a heart. Kayla has a heart. Kayla is in love already. This is Kayla's book boyfriend right now. He was screaming out into the sea, the deep gray sea that was blank and terrifying even when it was calm. He asked the ocean, both with words and with his mind, to give him the answer. He begged the ocean. He made his shrieks as loud as possible, bellowing shrieks that hurt his throat. He needed desperately the one thing that would help him save his country and his own self. It was not clear which he needed to save more, or wanted to save more, for that matter. The two were rather interlinked, anyway. For this purpose, he had spent days scaling the mountain because he needed to be heard by this sea. Water was the only way to see the way to end the evil. Water, the element essentially holding everything together. It both revealed and concealed, depending upon how it was utilized. It was the source. Show me. Ever have I been the faithful servant of the ways of nature? Those before me, who were also me, they were yours as well. They belong to you. Show me the way to fix this. I must fix this. He had been repeating this for hours and hours, it seemed, his desire overcoming his fatigue. It was a chant of sorts, though he did not sway back and forth as if in a trance. Rather, he shrieked with vigor. His voice was very deep, and when he shouted, it sounded throughout the air like the echo of a bass horn within a cavern. Show me! Reveal the answer! Let me know! He was desperate to convey his passion. It's a very sultry read so far, I have to say. He was desperate to convey his passion. His soul burned at the core. It felt twisted and terrified. The only thing that would save it was this answer. If the mighty ocean even cared to reveal the answer, he fully understood he probably did not deserve a chance to be the one who would rescue the country of Pearl. His pathetically hopeful thought was that the ocean would understand he was attempting to gain penitence for all the thick black evil he was partially responsible for, albeit an evil he had not created himself and had not known of until she told him. I love this. See, Kayla is thirsting right now. She is thirsting for Rimdelvir. I'm assuming this is Rimdelvir right now. Then, suddenly, as the largest wave he'd ever seen rolled toward him through the boiling hurricane skies, his commitment was rewarded. The tsunami wave, which must have been thousands of leagues high, crashed upon him. Lightning and thunder filled his senses. His lungs flooded, and he felt the lightness of death at the same time as the heaviness of life. His body was assaulted, his lungs and flesh, and, dear stars, his eyes, all aflame. Oh, his limbs were ripping apart. He was torn and torn and torn. But miraculously, the blessed images assailed him, one after another, a forest, deep and green and calm. A young girl, no, 2 young girls, lovely and lithe and blessed in some way. A boy on the verge of manhood, also on the verge of a lifetime of inevitable hatred. An angry family, a corrupted innocence, a twisted revenge, many faces, young faces, many lands full of conviction. That was quite beautiful. Bookmark. Someone wanted to come back to that. Someone wanted to revisit that. I don't blame them. Much more, so much more, specific but jumbled all together at one time. He felt himself laugh deliriously. Of course, he could not hear with this thunder rocking his senses, but he knew it. He knew the laughter of a madman, but he'd never known a madman could feel so damn delighted with justification. Before he could even begin to truly realize the convoluted things he saw and felt, he was violently thrown over the cliffside. He opened his eyes on the beach of the Sasph. You have to excuse me with these type of names here. The sea he had obtained his answer from. So that's the name of the sea. Pearl is the name of the continent. Pain burned his entire body. And for a long time, he could not stand to even twitch a muscle. His breathing was bitter and painful, and the only thing he could manage other than breathing was turning his head to the side so he wouldn't choke on the blood and vomit he expelled. Starving and horrified at losing anything within him, he had no choice but to lunge desperately towards his regurgitation and gobble it as a dog would, swallowing sand and salt as well. When that was over and he was completely away at his lack of shame, he considered his options. And the sky was calm as was the ocean. When it was not storming, this sea was completely without movement. It appeared to be a vast ethereal landscape. The stillness helped him retain composure and some measure of strength. The powers and secrets of this sea had been impenetrable up until now, when this lunatic wizard first begged, then pleaded, then demanded, and finally coerced it into a massive revelation. In severe pain, covered in sand and salt, he finally rose and headed Wersen to begin his long journey and sort out the visions the ocean had given him. They had been thrown within his mind all at once. The elements obviously felt the concept of time differently than humans, since the images had appeared almost as one. As he concentrated, though, they became at first one long line and then a spider's web of threads. Almost like he's going through he's kind of going through, this is like the character almost like going through a moment of like, not necessarily like a moment of self-actualization, but perhaps it is. Did not specify what these visions were. Perhaps these visions were of his past. Don't know that yet. As he concentrated, though, they became at first one long line, then a spider's web of threads, different colors, different images, even different smells and sounds. Along with the near physical blindness from his wounds, he held blind faith. Faith that what the ocean had shown him would grant him absolution and save the country he loved. It did not matter. This pain he was feeling, or the continuous retching sensation deep in his throat, nothing else mattered but somehow ridding his country of the lie by which it had unknowingly lived for centuries. This lie was evil in the purest sense, and solely by existing, he was part of it. Let's see. If Kayla comes back, she says the lie was evil in the purest sense, and solely by existing, he was part of it. This line is incredible. It's thought-provoking and philosophical. Though he had not committed this unspeakable act, he was nevertheless a very large contributor. And although he knew this, he had never considered suicide, however honorable some may have viewed it. A harakiri, if you will. That would have solved nothing. The terrible circle would continue, and he would not, abandon that which he loved, and he did not love these people, this land. Very strong emotions from this one. The prose so far seem a little bit purpley for my taste, but I think that it's definitely painting a picture in terms of characterization. I think that the prose have less to do with the world building as much as it seems as though you are really trying to get the point across in terms of characterization of how how this character thinks, how this character like what's going on inside of this character's heart. Basically showing that this is a character whose motivations are driven by passion more than anything else. At least that's what I'm getting from this so far. It seems so long ago that he had lived in the giant fortress called Cassith, in the middle of his beloved country, Pearl. And also, if I'm not pronouncing any of these right, Allie, please, next time you go live, and if you've caught this, let me know. I'm interested to see how you pronounce these. He was a different man then, knowledgeable in all the ways of magic, herbs, weaponry, and everything else the sole ruler of Pearl required he know in order to be assisted. He was devoted strictly to that woman, simply called Queen. Quine. Quine. Anything she desired, he gave her, and anything she commanded, he performed. So that was his sacred duty. It was his duty to please that booty, if you will. It had been the duty of all wizards for centuries past. He had adored the tradition then almost as much as he abhorred it now. He'd been absolutely in love with inner caste. Inner caste was where Queen and everyone under her command resided. All her attendants, political advisors, slave drivers, and slaves, personal guards, cooks, blacksmiths, dressmakers, and anyone else she required lived there with her. When representatives came from the various city-states, they stayed within the protective and impenetrable walls of inner caste. Some of the people dwelling there had never even been outside the walls. Certainly she had not. Though this was tradition, it was considered a tradition that made sense. Protecting her was simply an obvious concept. Anyway, some of the streets of Outer Cassith were slums. Though he hadn't fully understood the concept of a slum back then, he had felt, as everyone did, Queen was sacred. She protected the sanctity of all of Pearl. The country would simply fall apart if anything happened to her. Protect the Queen! The wizard assisted in keeping her safe, healthy, and most of all, he protected her power. Definitely a little bit of female power fantasy going on here, I see. All wizards had done this since the time the Queen tradition began. He recalled those days with disgust. How had he been such a fool? Blissfully, he had strolled throughout the corridors. Never mind the cursed blood-red river flowing throughout the entirety of Inner Cassith in an unnatural straightness. Unnatural because it flowed neither in Cassith Dark, the giant hole in the middle of the Inner Cassith, instead of seven into the Sathith, like every other river in Pearl. Never mind the chill of the stone walls with flecks of precious butt, like the river, cursed metals within. Never mind the fact that light from the many windows never penetrated the twisted corridors of Inner Cassith. The hallways he had sometimes been lost in, despite his lifetime spent there. I like how you're kind of like weaving in a little bit of world building there. He had served her, and that was his existence. He'd considered it a glorious and privileged purpose. He thought himself above all others. Technically speaking, he was second to the Queen. She looked to him and trusted him. At least he had thought she trusted him at the same time. Kayla? Oh, no, someone else. It's intriguing for sure. We'll read further in a bit. Be back soon. He'd welcome a summons from her at any hour. Most of the time, he was already awake anyway. He charted the stars, he designed weaponry, and even knew ways to battle using a natural magic theoretically accessible in all beings. He healed people of illness and broken limbs. He created different tricks to please her, and he pondered the problems of Pearl city-states. The role of wizard was not entirely one of magic and conjuring. Yes, he had done these things, but he was also Queen's main advisor in all things: politics, time, festivals, wars, monetary matters. He helped her with everything. She relied upon him, and that thought alone filled him with warmth in those days. Was there a little bit of a love? Was there a little bit of romantic tension between these two, I wonder? Often when she called him, she'd lean over and whisper in his ear. Oh, I guess I spoke too soon. My dear Rimdelvir, my lovely wizard, I could never be without you. My genius wizard, my beautiful one, my only. And he'd melted with admiration. Her voice was honey and caramel and dewdrops. Her light breath on his neck. Flower petals of the most delicate kind. Never mind that this breath was never hot, always chilled like frost. Just recalling it made him ache with longing and tingling in his chest, accompanying a slight warm excitement in his loins. Oh, my loins! But then the dark anger flowed, erasing the possibility of sensual images. He had actually thought she appreciated him, even fantasized she had loved him. He was the fool of the universe. Whoa, slow down there, pal. He was the fool of the universe, a tool of evil, something she'd used and nothing more. He didn't know whether she'd been utilizing magic to keep him as her slave or not, but now it did not matter. He would use any means whatever to bring her down, and he knew the sea had given him the answer. Didn't quite reveal it yet, though. That's what I'm wondering. The hell was it telling him? I'm intrigued. The wizard Rimdelvir found his horse a few miles away. Hold on. The wizard Rimdelvir found his horse a few miles away. The storm had twisted its neck all the way around. He would have to walk. He didn't mind the physical exertion or the death of the animal so much as he was annoyed at the time he would waste. Jesus. He was a good while away. For somebody who is so passionate, he does seem a little bit heartless at this moment in time. He was a good while away from the first stop he needed to make, and he felt rushed. He'd felt harried from the second he left Cassith. What shall I do? Whatever it is, I must do it quickly and soon. It did not help that he did not truly know the world outside Inner Cassith. Despite all his scholarly knowledge, he discovered that the people, the real people of Pearl, were nothing like what he'd seen or learned of during his years spent within the walls of Inner Cassith. He saw people who were starving, people who were cold, people who were plague-ridden for Star's sake. He saw people slept in the mud and children whose job it was to rid the streets of dead bodies, some of which were their parents and siblings. These people had eyes that conveyed absolutely nothing, and it was this blankness that filled him with true horror. All right, I take that heartlessness comment back. He had thought he'd known revulsion when Queen told him the secret. That was nothing compared to the eyes he looked into as he traveled desperately sethen and away from the castle. Pearl was not a small land. Indeed, no one knew for sure how large it truly was. Every second counted to him then. Every second counted to him currently, and now he would be walking stiffly from the ice melting in his muscles, despite the fierceness of his conviction. He knew he'd soon be bleeding as well, and the sea had taken his supplies in its fury. With the thick, uneven layer of salt burning his deep cuts, he certainly had things working against him. He bent over and vomited. Oh, yes. He suddenly remembered he would also need food. The bitter taste of the salt burned the lacerations in his throat and nose. After once again ingesting his vomit, leftovers, ×2. Rimdelvier continued walking, breathing hoarsely and wiping the vomit from his face to lick it from his fingers. That's finger licking good. And now his eyes began to bleed, actual rubies. He tossed them into the sea. More payment. Sathith would know that despite the curse on the ruby tears, pieces of his body were all he had to give. Anyway, the silence in the air was worse than his physical pain. It was causing him to retreat again into his mind, back to the trauma that had created his current cause. Knowledge had been his life. He had thought he'd known everything. How could he have seen that his ignorance was so vast and included a piece of himself even he did not know? Even he did not know. Who truly realizes their own ignorance? No one except Queen possessed more knowledge than he. And he had thought himself more skilled than Queen. He considered this laughable now. Again, he thought on the fool he was. But that very day he had counseled her in important affairs of state. That day, when all had so callously been revealed to him, did she pretend to need advisors just so she wouldn't appear as the demon dictator she was? The common Perlian would never see her or ever consider the thought, but the inner castle dwellers may have, if she didn't act the way she did. The part she played so very well, taking the advice given to her only so much, asking the questions she was expected to ask. She had so much to oversee. How could she possibly remember every detail of every law? How could she possibly know the inner workings of every city-state in Pearl? There were thousands. And though she was a ruler, she was just a woman after all. No comment. Sometimes even the hundreds of advisors couldn't keep everything straight, and they were all men. But now Rimdelvier knew. She was no mere female ruler. She didn't really need those advisors, and she didn't really need him. They were commodities. Perhaps she just enjoyed watching them run around and do her bidding. Perhaps she enjoyed the constant theatrics she performed. Perhaps both and more. Other things he'd never comprehend and didn't care to. He wasn't entirely sure, but he had a small hunch that a Perlian uprising could still be a potential downfall. Nothing could be all-powerful, not even her. And that small feeling, along with the visions the sea had granted him, were what pushed him onward. Personal vengeance, yes, there was that. but she needed to be eliminated. Rimdelvier believed, what did she do? That's what I'm asking. Like, now I want to know. Like, what did this bitch do to Rimdelvier? I mean, I can't ask who hurt you because we know that. The queen bitch. But what makes her such a bitch that he needs to eliminate her? Feels the need to. But she needed to be eliminated. Rimdelvier believed the people should be free of her and free of the secrets she held to maintain power. And if he had to control some Perlians to rid the country of her, so be it. The ends justified the means, most definitely. Interesting. Just a tad, just a little bit of hypocrisy here in his mode of thought, Rimdelvier's mode of thought here. The vile woman had called upon him that day, but he had not been able to come to her immediately. He'd been caring for one of the songwalker politicians, and this was dire since their land was far away. Travel over the mountains near their lands was exceedingly difficult. There were no rivers and no roads, and the songwalker issue was pressing, as were all issues brought personally before Queen. He recalled having felt guilty for not coming to her right away. The emotion was, of course, idiocy now. His guilt was no longer so petty. Finishing the care of the ill being, Rimdelvier had hurried to her chambers. That had been something new, even for him. Virtually no one was permitted within her personal rooms. He had been excited. Secretly, he'd harbored a love that did pass beyond duty. He rarely admitted this to himself, since it had disgusted him and made him feel as though he were committing a treachery. At that time, he'd tried to keep those emotions from his thoughts for fear he would reveal himself and be seen as a fool. The irony. He was a fool anyway. Tentatively, he had entered her chambers, scared out of his mind, a terror that had caused a certain sexual excitement. The curiosity had only made his heart beat faster. Oh, he couldn't trick himself. He had wanted her. I would have just said he wanted her instead of the using the filtering there. Wanted to take her in his arms in those secret rooms, in the bed touched only by her. He was special, she told him that so very often. Rimdelvier, my love, my only, my one. I cannot live without you, my wizard, my lovely. He shook her voice away with the freezing air. It had gotten easier as he had fled farther from Cassith. The desire to feel her body underneath him, convulsing with the passion and the pleasure he knew only he could give her, however, only grew stronger. He had to admit that, at least. She was alluring and controlling, beautiful and meek, and he was entirely in love with her. And when invited within her personal area, almost lost in pure delight. His happiness at that time was nothing compared to the depression and pain he felt now. At this point, his sexual desire had evolved into wanting to molest her with exceptional force. Jesus! To make her feel more brutal helplessness than he did. He briefly considered whether it was worse that she probably knew he loved her, or if she had actually caused him to love her. Either way, she obviously didn't care. Push it away, man. Push away the farce and the desire and the damning emotions. She is evil. She is nothing to you but something to be destroyed. Bookmark. His anger at his weakness, his anger at his thoughts of love, or maybe just desire, he wasn't sure, annoyed him. He could not let these things stop him. Emotions meant nothing now. Only the logical justice was something worthwhile. The wind had picked up again, which meant the salt stirred throughout the overwhelmingly damp air, and upon Sasseth were vaguely lonely ripples. His lungs suffered. He realized the only thing keeping him alive was breath. I am enjoying this narration, by the way, and this narrative is quite compelling, I have to say. He had not, even though I'm still intrigued. What the hell did this bitch do to this guy? You know what I mean? I'm intrigued. Perhaps that's the hook. Not about her right now. It's about this Rimdelvir guy. We know he's all up. Rimdelvir is all up in his feelings right now. He's all up in he's all up in his feels right now. His lungs suffered. He realized the only thing keeping him alive was breath. He had not eaten, nor had he drank water since he left for the cliffs, and he hadn't even realized it until now. So lost was he in his thoughts. He knew he should head further inland. But what if she had sent troops for him? He knew he would not be killed. He was very valuable to her in a twisted sense. But I thought she didn't need him, though. That's the thing. Little bit of a slip there. I don't know. He knew he would not be killed. He was very valuable to her, but she didn't need him. He would be taken back to Cassith, and the place he now loathed almost as much as he disdained the woman he had once served. Yet, even as this thought crossed his mind, that whisper from his deepest mind returned. You love her. You want to serve her. You love her. Love her. Love her. No! He dug his long black nails into a salty wound and cried out. The pain was better than the thoughts of bedeviled servitude. He pulled and ripped some flesh away. The expanded gash throbbed as salt licked muscle, the expanded gash throbbed as salt licked muscle, and he grinned. Yes, the pain was good. This physical pain was lovely. He considered discarding the little strip of flesh, but couldn't bear to. The things she had told him made him admittedly terrified of such a thing. He shoved the strip of skin into his mouth and chewed. It was bitter from the salt and made him a little ill when he realized he was consuming his own life, but preferable to the alternative he now knew existed. Thanks to that cursed female. Ha! Hardly could she be called a female. More like a losus naturae. a deformation, he decided. The land of Pearl was filled with monsters, but none so evil as Queen. And he would show everyone just how monstrous she was. He would expose her to every single living creature. And then, well, never mind about the end of his plan. He finished chewing and swallowed the flesh, suppressing a gag reflex. He trudged on, exhausted beyond belief. If only I could rest, he thought. Surely. Once he had lain in a soft bed and been completely content, his eyes rolled a little. He shook his head and pushed on, but his movements were exceedingly sluggish. He hadn't noticed before. He had never felt tired. Not really. Inner Cassith was like a giant womb, so peaceful, so very ambient. The constant throb of the blood-red river dulling the mind. His deepest mind told him he wanted to just go back and be comfortable, to forget all this pain and fatigue. Sounds like he's battling denial right here. Rimdelveer's deep in his feelings. Deep in his feels, he sounds very conflicted. He doesn't know whether he wants to kill the queen or make love to her at this point. That was the word for it, fatigue. What was it to the folk who traveled to Cassith always said? No matter how slow the journey, fatigue caught up with them. Well, isn't that interesting, he thought. Perhaps fatigue is catching up with me as well. I do just want to rest, to sleep. What I would do for a warm bed. This was his last thought as he finally collapsed onto the pale beach. He hasn't even made it off the damn beach. Shit. The day coming to a close. The two long, thin hands reaching for him. And two long, thin hands reaching for him. Large red eyes. Soft hands. These beings speak without speaking. Why can't I see any clearer? There's a fog. There's a veil. The gelatinous red eyes are fading. In a clearing, there stands a lovely young woman. She is hardly older than girlhood, yet she is taken somehow. She turns to me, and she has hazel eyes. I have not seen eyes of hazel. They are so innocent, but she is deeply depressed. She knows. She knows me, and she knows what I want. And at the same time, she does not know. Strange, such dark, lovely flesh. I am suddenly touching her. Why can't I feel her? Feel sick. Everything is very green. A man yells at another man. They do not see that I watch them. Something about a son turned to a fool by some strange power. Again with the sickness. My mouth is going to fall off. My skin is flaking away. And there are those eyes again. Oh, leave me be. Leave me with my death. The girl again. Yet she is a woman now. Again, she knows what I want, what I will take, and what I shall give. This time she is indifferent. I see that her sadness has overtaken her entirety. Yet still I cannot feel her. Everything is so bright when I hold her. I work some magic, and I want it to seem beautiful for her. No, for the child I am giving her. This is the key, the key. I'm assuming he's passed out and now he's having his visions again. Pulled away again, back to this pain. Damn, damn, damn. They are peeling off my flesh, those large red eyes. I can see they mean to be kind now. They show me the flesh they have taken, and it has crystallized. Is that moaning really mine? Form words, Rimdelveer. Feed me flesh. Cannot lose myself. Don't care if salt harms. Darkness again. Fire in the village below. The boy glares at me, speaks, though the voice seems far. He walks away with two knee lights. Never have I felt such hatred emanate from a being. I have just returned and everything is falling apart. She is marrying the child. This child I made cannot marry. Quicker, flash. The child I created lays in a coma, but her eyes remain open. She has no skin. Save her, man of magic. She is my daughter. Pain and pain and pain. Now the slaughter. Everything runs together, all these colors, and then they are red. Deep red, the red of the river flowing from inner Cassith. He woke to the blood-red eyes. Interesting. So he's having these visions. So what I'm assuming happened here at the ending is he passed out on the beach. He started having these visions, but while he was passed out, his body was retrieved by somebody and taken somewhere, perhaps to a tribe of some sort. And now he's awakened. Very interesting. I will say it does have a little bit of a poetic flow to it, I noticed. Poetic type. You do have kind of a poetic prose in this piece, I have to say. Thank you for sharing that, Allie. And Wattpad was fun. I do have to say, I did. That's the first time. I'm pretty sure that's the first. No, that's not the first time I've read something from Wattpad on the stream. But that is the first time I've read something from Wattpad that had those little comments on the paragraphs. So I thought that was an interesting little feature right there. So I would, for you guys who have things on Wattpad, I would be interested in reading more from Wattpad. If you guys want to share some links with me to any of your stories or books that you have on Wattpad, I could read the first chapter, first section, or read a short story or something like that. But also not limited to stories. If you have poetry, if you post poetry on your website, I'll read your poetry as well. Also essays. So if it's like essays that have to do with like writing, or if you do like editorials, like critiques, opinion pieces on books, and it doesn't have to be indie books. It could be an editorial that you've written, like an opinion piece on a famous work. That could be interesting to read and talk about and provide commentary for. And speaking of commentary, don't have one for this stream, but normally there would be one more segment to the live stream where I would have a featured video. So if you want to jump ahead on the queue, I would say submit a link to a video, to video content. So some examples of video content that I would provide, like I would either do like a reaction to, you get my first impressions, I should say. You can get like my first impressions while watching would be like book trailers. So if you would like to submit a link to a book trailer you made, I think that would be cool. Or if you do your own poetry readings and you upload those on your own YouTube channel, I could watch one of those and do like a, I could share my thoughts and opinions on that particular piece. Or if you do like storytelling or comedy or something like that, then I could do like a video commentary type segment. Also, I've done like writer's updates before. So if you're on Authortube and you do like writer update videos and it's a video of you, I would prefer that it's a video of you talking specifically about your own work. I think that would be interesting. It would basically be, because I'm not an interview guy. I've said before, I'm open to the idea of having, guest co-hosts like come on and hang out with me on the stream and kind of co-host a show with me. But I'm not an interview guy. I don't do interviews. But if you want to upload a video to your YouTube channel where it's just you talking about a specific project that you have or a book of yours where you're talking about the characters. It could be about the plot, the writing process itself. I'm open to watching that video on the stream, and it would be kind of like a pseudo interview thing, but it's just like me listening to watching you and listening to you, and kind of like I can, you know, kind of provide a little bit of commentary as I'm watching your video in terms of how I could relate as a writer myself about whatever it is that you're talking about. So there's many different ways that we can kind of connect with each other while still doing our own separate thing as artists, and kind of help each other out in that way. So that is the Monday night live stream for this week, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you discovered something new, and I will be back here for you next week, the same time. That's 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 6 p.m. Pacific. Have a good week.